We just beat the #1 ranked guy, #1 champion, lineal world champion, Josh Taylor, former undisputed world champion.
Stop pretending this is just another boxing match. Because what's brewing right now is the kind of fight that cracks the sport down the middle. Okay, TEOFIMO Lopez versus SHAKUR Stevenson in 2026 isn't a matchup, it's a collision. 2 egos, 2 undefeated mentalities, 2 completely opposite philosophies about what dominance in boxing is supposed to look like. And behind the scenes, the tension is already louder than the punches. This fight feels leaked before it's even announced. Whispers in gyms, side eyes at press events, fighters talking without saying names. Suddenly timelines are arguing, analysts are panicking, and fans are already picking winners like this is a civil war. TEOFIMO is chaos with gloves on, a walking plot twist who fights like he's allergic to expectations. SHAKUR is surgical, icy, methodical, the kind of fighter who makes opponents look stupid and fans argue whether it's genius or boredom. And here's the dangerous part. Both men think this fight defines their era, not just a belt. Not just money, legacy, respect, the right to say, I run this generation. This isn't about styles making fights anymore. This is about pride colliding with precision. About trash talk meeting chess moves. About one wrong step rewriting careers. This makes reality TV look underscripted, because when these two finally lock in, boxing doesn't just get a fight. It gets a reckoning. The moment TEOFIMO Lopez and SHAKUR Stevenson started circling the same weight class conversations, boxing didn't just notice, it tensed up. Because this isn't the kind of matchup that sneaks onto a card quietly. This is the kind of fight that stalks the sport for years before it happens, living in interviews, side comments, Twitter fingers. And gym whispers like a ghost everyone pretends they don't see. And once 2026 got attached to it, the temperature jumped instantly. TEOFIMO has never been a safe fighter in any sense of the word. Not safe stylistically, not safe emotionally. Not safe for matchmakers who enjoy predictable outcomes. He's chaos wrapped in confidence. A fighter who can look like the second coming of boxing royalty one night and a complete wild card the next. That unpredictability is exactly why people can't stop watching him, and exactly why some analysts lose sleep trying to break him down. TEOFIMO doesn't just fight opponents. He fights expectations, narratives, and sometimes common sense. SHAKUR Stevenson, on the other hand, is the opposite end of the spectrum. If TEOFIMO is a hurricane, SHAKUR is a controlled demolition. Calculated, surgical, to the point where opponents look like they're boxing against air. He doesn't rush, he doesn't waste. He dissects fighters piece by piece. And by the time the final bell rings, the question isn't who won. It's how did he make that look so easy? That contrast alone is enough to sell the fight. But the real tension comes from how each man views himself. TEOFIMO sees himself as the disruptor, the guy who shows up to ruin carefully built plans. He believes boxing needs chaos, and he believes he is the chaos. SHAKUR sees himself as the standard, the blueprint, the future of clean dominance. When two fighters both believe they represent what boxing should be, compromise is impossible. What really lit the fuse was the growing sense that this fight wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. Promoters started speaking carefully. Fighters in nearby divisions started accidentally mentioning names. Media outlets framed questions in ways that felt less hypothetical and more predictive. Nobody announced anything, but everyone acted like something was already in motion. That's when fans knew this wasn't just fantasy matchmaking anymore. Then came the reactions. Immediately, the boxing world split into camps like this was a philosophical debate instead of a fight. TEOFIMO supporters argued that SHAKUR's Style only works until someone refuses to play the game. They called him too safe, too calculated, too comfortable. They said Teofimo's explosiveness, power, and willingness to take risks would drag Shaka into chaos. He couldn't. Control. Shakur's side fired back without hesitation. They pointed to footwork, defense, ring IQ. They talked about discipline versus emotion, precision versus recklessness. They argued that Teofimo's volatility is exactly what a fighter like Shakur feeds on. That every mistake becomes a lesson, and every lesson becomes punishment. According to them, this wouldn't be a war. It would be a clinic, and that's where the sarcasm creeps in. Because both sides sound absolutely convinced, and both can't be right. Teofimo has made a career out of proving experts wrong, then immediately proving them right again. Shakur has made a career out of making elite fighters look ordinary, then getting criticized for doing it too cleanly. It's a perfect storm of contradiction. The controversy isn't about whether the fight would be good. It's about what kind of good boxing fans are allowed to enjoy. Fireworks or finesse, violence or virtuosity. People argue about this matchup like it's a referendum on the sport itself, as if the winner gets to decide how boxing should be fought for the next decade. Behind the scenes, the tension feels even thicker. Fighters don't talk directly, but the subtext screams. Comments about real fighters, jabs about running. Versus engaging, praise that sounds suspiciously like disrespect. Nobody wants to blink first, because blinking looks like doubt. And doubt is blood in the water at this level. The leaked feeling buzz around the fight only adds to the drama. Nothing official, yet everything feels unofficially confirmed. Gym footage gets overanalyzed. Training partners hint at strategy without saying anything concrete. Boxing Twitter turns into a war room. What makes this especially dangerous is timing. Both fighters are approaching that point where legacy questions get louder than highlight reels. Teofimo needs a defining moment that shuts down inconsistency narratives once and for all. Shakur needs a fight that silences critics who claim dominance without danger isn't enough. This matchup solves both problems or destroys both careers. That's why the stakes feel so heavy already. No contract signed, yet reputations are already being gambled. People talk about this fight as if it already happened, and that alone is pressure. Imagine walking into a ring knowing half the sport has already decided how you're supposed to win. And the funniest part? Both fighters seem to thrive on that pressure. Teofimo feeds off being doubted. Shakur feeds off being underestimated emotionally. One uses chaos as fuel. The other uses calm as a weapon. It's like watching fire argue with ice about who's more dangerous. By the time this fight actually gets announced, the narrative will already be fully formed. Heroes and villains pre-selected, styles overanalyzed, becomes predicted. With unreasonable confidence, that's exactly why it's terrifying. Because boxing loves nothing more than humiliating certainty. This isn't just the setup to a fight. It's the setup to an identity crisis for the sport itself. And once the bell rings, there will be no hiding behind opinions anymore. The moment this fight talk escaped the gym walls and fully hit the internet, it stopped being a boxing debate and turned into a cultural event, not an announcement, not a press conference. Just pure speculation weaponized by fans, fighters, and algorithms. And somehow, Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson for 2026 already feels louder than fights that actually have contracts signed. Boxing Twitter immediately turned into a digital coliseum. Threads went from analysis to insults in under 3 replies. Polls popped up like they were scientific studies. People who hadn't laced gloves a day in their life suddenly spoke with the confidence of Hall of Fame trainers. And the wild part, everyone sounded convinced. This wasn't who do you think wins. This was how badly does your guy embarrass the other one. Memes didn't waste time either. Shakur got turned into the final boss of defense. The fighter who makes opponents swing at ghosts and rethink their career choices mid-fight. One meme compared TEOFIMO to a sports car with no brakes. Another compared Shakur to Wi-Fi you can't escape. Always there, never dropping connection. Boxing discourse has officially entered its unhinged era. Then came the celebrity reactions, and no one needed to say names. Fighters from other divisions started chiming in with suspiciously timed opinions. About real fighting versus hit-on don't get. Legends gave diplomatic answers that somehow fueled the fire more. Analysts tried to stay neutral and failed spectacularly. Every take became ammo. The outrage phase arrived right on schedule. Some fans accused Shakur of boring boxing, as if winning too cleanly is a crime. Accused TEOFIMO of being too emotional, too erratic, too unpredictable to survive. Against a technician, the fight turned into a morality play. Discipline versus instinct. Chess versus street fight. People weren't just arguing about who would win, they were arguing about what boxing should be. And that's when things got spicy. Because Shakur didn't just get criticized, he got challenged culturally. People questioned whether dominance without blood was acceptable entertainment. TEOFIMO fans clapped back by saying boxing isn't ballet, it's war. Shakur supporters fired right back, arguing that getting hit is optional if you're elite. Enough. The comment sections looked like philosophy debates sponsored by violence. TEOFIMO's unpredictability became both his greatest selling point and his biggest liability in the discussion. Supporters framed it as adaptability, explosiveness, raw hunger. Critics framed it as inconsistency, disguised as confidence. They brought up nights where he looked untouchable, and nights where he looked human. And every time someone said, but. When he's on, someone else responded, but what if he's not? Shakur's precision got dissected just as brutally. People praised his footwork, his timing, his ability to shut down entire game plans. But the word boring kept getting thrown around like a curse, even though boredom and brilliance don't usually coexist. His supporters argued that dominance doesn't need fireworks. His critics argued that legacy does. The wildest part is how both fighters fed the chaos without feeding it directly. No direct callouts, no screaming matches. Just subtle comments, strategic interviews, and body language that screamed confidence. Shakur talked about levels. TEOFIMO talked about real fights. Neither needed to say the other's name. Everyone knew exactly who they were talking about. YouTube thumbnails started screaming, "Styles make fights" like it was a warning label. TikTok edits imagined hypothetical exchanges with dramatic music like a movie trailer. People broke down imaginary rounds as if they'd already happened. This wasn't hype anymore. It was simulation culture. What really escalated things was how personal fans made it. Supporting one fighter started to feel like a declaration of identity. If you liked Shaka, you were labeled a purist. If you liked TEOFIMO, you were labeled a chaos lover. Nobody wanted to admit both could be great, because that doesn't win arguments. And then the outrage shifted again, this time toward the industry itself. Fans questioned whether boxing would even allow this fight to happen. Promoters caught strays. Networks got accused of ducking risk. People started acting like the biggest threat to this mega fight wasn't either fighter, it was business, politics. And honestly, that might be the most realistic take of all. The anticipation became so intense that it started bending reality. Every unrelated TEOFIMO performance was evaluated through the lens of how would this work against Shakur. Every Shakur fight got criticized for not answering questions he hadn't even been asked yet. The fighters were being judged for a fight that didn't exist. And somehow, it still felt fair in the court of public obsession. Even casual fans got pulled in. This wasn't just for hardcore boxing heads anymore. The narrative was simple enough for everyone to pick a side. Explosive star versus surgical master. Risk versus restraint. Fire versus ice. It sold itself. By the end of this phase, the conversation had completely outrun reality. The fight wasn't signed, but the expectations were locked in. Anything short of perfection would disappoint someone, and that's the most dangerous place a fight can live, in a hype bubble. So big it threatens to pop on contact, because once the noise reaches this level, there's no walking it back. No quiet announcement. No soft buildup. This fight, real or not, had already become a referendum on greatness and the pressure. It was only getting heavier. By the time this matchup reached full myth status, the consequences were already unfolding. And the wild part is, nobody had even touched gloves yet. That's how heavy this fight has become. TEOFIMO Lopez versus SHAKUR Stevenson isn't just looming over 2026 like a marquee attraction. It's already reshaping careers, reputations, and how both fighters are perceived in real time. This is pressure without a bell, legacy without a result, and risk without protection. For TEOFIMO, the aftermath of this buildup cuts both ways. On one hand, this fight restores his identity as boxing's ultimate disruptor. The guy nobody can quite figure out. The one who refuses to follow scripts, breaks expectations, and shows up swinging at destiny like it owes him money. Fans who crave chaos have already crowned him the necessary villain to SHAKUR's order. Win or lose, TEOFIMO is once again positioned as must-watch television, volatile, emotional, dangerous. But the flip side is unforgiving. The inconsistency narrative has grown louder. Every uneven performance now feels amplified. Every tactical lapse becomes evidence. Critics don't just ask if TEOFIMO can beat SHAKUR, they ask which version of TEOFIMO would even show up. The brilliant one or the impulsive one? That uncertainty doesn't just excite fans, it terrifies promoters. Because unpredictability sells, but it also scares money. SHAKUR's situation is just as intense, but in a different way. He's no longer just the technical prodigy. He's become the symbol of boxing's future, and symbols don't get to have off nights. This matchup has elevated expectations to a brutal level. Dominance alone isn't enough anymore. People want statement dominance. They want him to embarrass chaos. They want him to prove that discipline beats danger every single time. And that's an unfair burden because SHAKUR's brilliance has always been about control, not spectacle. But the conversation has shifted. Critics aren't asking if you'll win, they're asking how entertaining the win will be. That's a trap. Because boxing history is full of geniuses who were underappreciated in their time, only to be worshipped. Later, SHAKUR is fighting that timeline in real time. Public perception has hardened around both men. TEOFIMO is now viewed as the ultimate test. The chaos checkpoint. Beat him, and you're legit. Lose to him, and the questions multiply. SHAKUR, meanwhile, is viewed as the gatekeeper of dominance. Lose to him, and your flaws get exposed under bright lights. Beat him, and you've cracked the code everyone else failed to solve. The industry feels it too. This fight has become a measuring stick for boxing's direction. If it happens and delivers fireworks, the sport leans toward aggression and risk. If it happens and becomes a technical masterclass, the purists win the argument. Either way, the outcome will shape matchmaking philosophies for years. Fighters coming up will study this bout like scripture, and if the fight doesn't happen, it might be the loudest outcome of all. Because then the narrative flips from legacy to avoidance. Fans won't care about contracts or politics. They'll care about what they were promised and didn't get. History is cruel like that. The fights that never happen haunt careers just as much as the ones that do. What's undeniable is this: both men are already fighting invisible rounds. Every interview, every performance, every quote. They're being scored against an opponent who isn't even in front of them yet. That's exhausting. That's dangerous. And that's what mega fights do before they ever exist. The suspense, now, isn't just about who wins. It's about who cracks first. Who overthinks. Who tries to prove too much. Who abandons identity to satisfy noise. Because when pressure reaches this level, mistakes don't come from lack of skill. They come from trying to silence doubt. This is why the fight feels inevitable and fragile at the same time. It's destiny wrapped in politics, art trapped. Inside business. Fire staring at ice, both convinced they melt the other by the time 2026 arrives. If this fight goes down, it won't just decide a winner. It will decide narratives that have been building for years. It will validate one philosophy and wound another. It will give boxing a moment it can't spin away. And if you're being honest, that's why everyone is obsessed. Not because of belts, not because of money, because this fight answers a question boxing has been arguing about forever. And once it's answered, there's no going back. Now don't blink, because if you made it this far, you already know this isn't just a fight on the schedule. This is a collision that could rewrite boxing arguments for the next decade. And whether you're Team Chaos or Team Chessboard, one thing is clear: when TEOFIMO Lopez and SHAKUR Stevenson finally lock in. Excuses expire, so here's what I need from you right now. Smash that like button like it owes you money, because if this breakdown had your brain running championship rounds, that button deserves the punishment. Then drop your pick in the comments and don't hedge. Who takes it in 2026? Does TEOFIMO drag SHAKUR into deep water and drown the game plan? Or does SHAKUR dismantle chaos piece by piece and make it look unfair? Say it with confidence, because this debate is already heating up and the comment section is the way dash and dot. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button immediately. Not after the press conference, not after the face-off, right now. Because when this fight gets officially announced, when trash talk turns nuclear, when camps leak details and narratives flip overnight, you don't want recycled takes, you want sharp breakdowns in real time. This channel lives where hype meets truth, where ego meets technique, where boxing drama, strategy, and legacy collide without filters. Mega fights, hidden storylines. Pressure points nobody else talks about. That's what we do, because when the bell finally rings, someone's legacy gets upgraded, someone's mythology gets exposed, and boxing gets its answer. Stay locked in, stay loud. This is Punch Press, and the pressure is just getting started.